Greetings, my fellow freeloaders, silent thinkers. This is LO3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful, swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Thursday, May 4th, 2017. Alright. Yep. So everyone will be celebrating Cinco de Mayo. And I bet you they don't know why. They never understand the Battle of Puebla, which was a historical event that the town, a bunch of ragtag militia folks, defeated the French army on that day during the French-Mexican War, around 1861 to 67, if I'm correct. So, a big question to ask folks. I say, celebrate Devin Townsend's birthday. He'll turn 45, and happy birthday to you, sir. One day in advance, of course. Oops, I did a hiccup there. And we all know, too, they're going to have talk about the health care bill, the Republicans' health care bill, which some of the members of the Liberty Caucus call it Obama Light or ACA Light. Come on. If they would have repealed the HMO Act in 1973, we would have been better off in the United States. But no, government knows best. Please control my mind and when to wash my crotch, sir. All right, that's I use a little sarcasm now and then. If a lot of you folks understand where I'm coming from, you still listen, so I thank you. Well, this is here I find more essential. It's a benefit show. It's how it happened to a colleague, a friend of mine's, closest buddies. And it's to help Emmett recover, which is going to be May 10th on a Wednesday night at Churchill's Pub. And it's located at 5501 Northeast 2nd Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33137. And you get as a Facebook page. And it gives the map and all that. And this is what's been about. Help Emmett recover. And it says here, on Saturday, April 30th, 2017, Emmett was violently attacked and beaten by a group of 5 to 7 individuals. I call them scumbag, criminal pieces of garbage. I hope these parasites are listening. After the show at Black Booth in Orlando, Florida. He suffered many wounds, but the worst of them required serious facial surgery. Government said both orbital sockets, nose, and jaw need to be operated on, or he could have serious issues in the future, like loss of sight and inability to chew. Help Emmett recover. Come to benefit or donate online. Here is a GoFundMe page. All proceeds from the door and the percentage of the bar will be donated to live bands. Live bands to be announced. Please, to play. Email booking at churchillspub.com. And the site's right here on GoFundMe. You put the link on, and it says the same thing. They got Sarah Ryan on behalf of Thomas Emmett Ryan. So. Yeah, you could say here, there's more in here. My family just mourned the loss of our oldest brother, Sion, due to similar acts of violence. Sion was beaten to death. We are overwhelmed emotionally, but also financially. Emmett has no savings and no health insurance. Now, Emmett is a talented musician, a student, and an inspiring athlete. He is intelligent, funny, and introspective. It would be absolutely remarkable if donations were made in order to assist us in the goal of bringing Emmett back to being Emmett. No amount is too small. We would be forever thankful for any assistance received. And you got folks out here are donating, which is great. And they're at the 11,854 mark in one day, which is fantastic. I've seen him around at shows and other shows down in Churchill's. And Eric Faden is one of the people one of his colleagues I know. and he's good folk as well. Very liberty minded. He's a Ron Paul supporter. He loves hardcore punk music and so forth. He's a promoter as well. They're like brothers, and this needs to be addressed. And we got folks got some good information here, which is great. So I gotta take initiative in doing this as well, and everyone out there should do it too. So I will post on my footnotes on the Spreaker page and all that YouTube. So it'll be all on there. So that's a shame when you have darkness in these shows. And it was a Judge concert, and there's a straight edge band from New York City. Good group. Some of the bands played down here, Brethren, a few others. It was a good vibe. There's no problems. But you're always going to have pieces of garbage everywhere you go. These little tough guys. 5 to 7 against 1. You guys are manless scumbags. Plain and simple. Keep it up. It will blow back in your faces. And you know what? One thing you can do is look at yourselves. And don't say, "What happened? How come it's done this to me?" It's called cursing yourselves. My thoughts and prayers go out to his family and him as well, and everyone that loves him. So if you could donate, that would be fantastic. So so definitely I'm going to do that. Make this happen. All right, so I've enough of that off my chest. So actually, some of the things are happening here, which is interesting. And this was going to be talking about, some of it's going to be mainly talking about the Florida 10th Amendment Act, or Restoration Act of 2017. I was trying to look for the bill itself that was done by Representative Neil Dunn, he's a doctor, by the way. That's all right. A doctor, man, yeah. Not some attorney or esquire or anything like that, but doctor. So talking about some of those and other stuff I'm going to be addressing as well with some Big Brother tyrannical related incidences. It'd be mostly domestic too. So, all right. Well, here's from the Tallahassee Democrat. It's entitled. It says here, Cotterell, Dunn wants the Fed to shed some power. It's happened on May 3rd. And it says here, one of Tallahassee's new congressmen wants to finally decipher a puzzling piece of the nation's founding document. It is not likely that anything will come of Representative Neil Dunn's initiative. It is not likely. See, right now they're guessing. All right? Assumptuous. Man, these people are just like a little bend over Bob, Probably Fed's butt boy, allegedly. I don't know. I'll continue on here. But it would be worthwhile exercise. There you go. He wants to create a study commission to figure out what the nation's founders meant when they wrote the 10th Amendment, which provides in full the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. You remember the 10th? Don't you? Bob Dole carried a copy around in his pocket during the 1996 presidential campaign and read it to the crowds, promising to restore duties and responsibilities of state capitals. Somehow that didn't electrify the electorate enough for Kansas Senator to oust Bill Clinton from the White House. Remember, they're both members of the Council of Foreign Relations. I'll continue on here. Perhaps Dunn, a Panama City physician elected to the House last November, will have better luck mobilizing a constituency for this last and least term item of yet old Bill of Rights. The First Amendment has religious folks, journalists, and the ACLU ever vigilant for any affront to its guarantees. Second Amendment has support groups so vast, the president himself flew to Atlanta last month to assure the National Rifle Association of his underlying feeling. But everybody wants to start a friends group on Facebook for the 10th Amendment. Well, we already got that. Maybe that's because nobody since James Madison has known what he meant when it was adopted in 1791, or what might it mean today? It seems to say any power not specifically given to the federal government by the Constitution nor prohibited to the states. Speed limits may be of the older drinking age, may be exercised differently each of the states or by the people. The people. How do the people exercise government power? Whatever the age of quill pens and parchment scrolls, or this errors of Trump's Twitter account. In case 1931, the Supreme Court of the 10th Amendment added nothing to the Constitution as originally ratified. 10 years later, the justice held the amendment states, but truism, that's all retained, that has not been surrendered. It said the amendment was added to allay fear that the new national government may seek to exercise powers not granted and that the states may not be able to exercise fully their reserved powers. Then came Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, and the federal government began gobbling ever greater chunks of authority. The court read the amendment in 1998 to validate the section of the Brady Bill because it was forced participation of the state's executive in the actual administration of a federal program, namely background checks on gun buyers, what that may argue for the Trump administration immigration policy, sanctuary cities, and such remains to be seen. Yeah, okay, what we're talking about is Prince versus the United States. I'm going to add that to my footnotes as well. So I'm just going to do this in a moment here. But that's one thing you got to look at is this because, and even talking about encroachment, encroachment on states' rights. So, yeah, I see it right around here. Mercer Law. I think that's a good way of explaining that. On Mercer Law, Mercer.education. So I'm going to add that to the footnotes here as well, so you folks can read it. I think it's important to know about this. It's 14 pages long, so you can read it on your own free will. So I'm going to add that in there and continue on. When the justices rescued Obamacare in 2012, they cited the 10th in striking down the congressional mandate to expand Medicaid coverage, which the court said improperly coerced the states. Dunn said that his 10th Amendment Restoration Act would restore power to the states and reduce the size of the federal government. It would create a National Review Commission to take a fresh look at all federal laws, agencies, and programs with an eye toward deciding what functions should be referred to the states for continuation or not. Members of the commission would be appointed by the president for 5-year terms. Their recommendations would be fast-tracked by Congress for ratification or rejection. The idea is patterned after the military base realignment and closure commission, which has periodically weeded out some unneeded installations in districts whose senators or congressmen lack the clout to keep a good boondoggle going. It will be hard for the Dunn Commission to get through Congress because the federal government didn't get so big and voracious by accident. Congress created those regulatory agencies and imposed all those rules on purpose and through Democrat or Republican administrations alike. It has not been eager to give them up, as we're seeing with Trump's proposal to cut funding of the arts, humanities, and public broadcasting. Members of Congress don't want to stop spending on anything in their own states or districts. Still, Dunn is undeterred by the political feasibility of getting the federal government to turn power, authority, and sources on the money back to the states. Big government doesn't work, he said, in announcing his legislation. From government-run health care to overreach in our local schools, hardworking Americans are struggling to keep up. It's time to give power back to the states, and the legislation does just that. And that's, I gotta admit, I jumped the gun a little bit on this article by Bill Cotterill, but it's really good. He makes a lot of sense. The whole thing is this. He's saying, man, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of time, and folks in the great state of Florida need to take the initiative on studying your constitutional rights, not just on the federal level, but the state level. Remember, as registered voters, you have that obligation. No excuses. Don't listen to bobbleheads who is going on TV. Okay, that's the Jim Jones syndrome. You got the internet, you got the library, you got the technology at your fingertips, or go to the damn library. You can read this stuff on this. And I got some footnotes I'm going to be just do a little glimpse on so people can start learning this. I support a 10th Amendment Restoration Act in Florida. Dr. Dunn, I thank you. I think Yoho, too, if I'm correct, has co-sponsored this as well, according to Sunshine State News. So this is one thing people got to start looking at because it needs to be done. And even the Prince versus the United States, okay, proves to make this happen. So, click here to read the article. Yeah, okay, awesome. Okay, awesome. So, the article on there. What the heck? Okay. Yeah, so. But this is something we should all check out. Yeah, because he's the same thing. Ted Yoho. As opposed to the same article here. Okay, cool. But definitely check. Definitely, you can read the article. So let's read what Dr. Dunn has to say about this. All right, and it came out April 28th. This is a press release. Dr. Dunn introduces 10th Amendment Restoration Act. BRAC style commission will recommend measures sending power back to the states and the people. Dr. Neil Dunn, Florida District 2, introduced the 10th Amendment Restoration Act of 2017 legislation to give more power back to the states and reduce the size of the federal government. The bill establishes a constitutional government review commission to review federal laws, agencies, and programs to determine what functions should be returned to the states per the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The 10th Amendment reads, the power not delegated to the United States by the Commission, nor protected to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The Constitution guarantees our liberty, and its defense requires constant vigilance, Dr. Dunn said. In Federalist Papers 45, Madison wrote that the federal government's powers are few and defined, but the states are numerous and indefinite. That principle was enshrined in the 10th Amendment. Yet, over generations, Congress and administrations have crossed that line so often it was almost worn away. Came to Congress to make that line bright again. I am proud to support Dr. Dunn's 10th Amendment Restoration Act. Far too long, our government has been allowed to grow bigger than what our founding fathers intended. This bill will enable us to trim down the size of the federal government and place that power in the hands of the individual states where it belongs, Representative Ted Yoho said. Modeled after base realignment and closure commission process, the Constitutional Government Review Commission is charged with producing recommendations for returning to the states the power that are definite delegated to the states by the U.S. Constitution. The Commission must also recommend ways to return to states and tribes the savings produced by shrinking the size and scope of the federal government. The bill provides for Commission's recommendations to be considered by Congress under the expedient floor procedures. The Commission is composed of 9 members serving 5-year terms who are appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. Eligible candidates must be learned in the U.S. Constitution and enumerated powers, and it specifically delegates to the federal government. Restoring power to the states and shrinking the size and scope of the federal government is the key to remaining true to the vision laid out by our founders, added Dr. Dunn. The legislation builds on President Trump's executive order on a comprehensive plan for reorganizing the executive branch, which directs the Office of Management and Budget to develop a plan that considers whether some or all of the functions of an agency, a component, or program appropriate for the federal government or would be better left to the state or local governments or to the private sector through free enterprise. Big government doesn't work, Dr. Dunn said. From government-run healthcare to overreach in our local schools, hardworking Americans are struggling to keep up. It's time to give power back to the states, and the legislation does just that. Yes, that's awesome by Dr. Dunn. And, of course, Ted Yoho, who represents Florida District 3, And there's an article by Ken Derby, and it says here, Neil Dunn, Ted Yoho champion 10th Amendment Restoration Act. And it came out in the second, is on Sunshine State News. That's what I found out about this. Okay, and it says here, freshman U.S. Representative Neil Dunn, Republican from Florida, is pushing to states to regain more powers from the federal government with the 10th Amendment Restoration Act, and has the support of a fellow North Florida Republican. Dan introduced this bill at the end of last month and was sent to the House Oversight, Government Reform, and House Rules Committee. Towards the end of last week, Dunn showcased his legislation, which creates a Constitutional Government Review Commission to review federal laws. Excuse me here. Sorry about that, folks. Agencies and programs determine what functions should be returned to the states per the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. As he highlighted his proposal last week, Dunn noted the 10th Amendment holds the power not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited but to the states are reserved to the states respectively or the people, and quoted the Founding Fathers as he made his case. The Constitution guarantees our liberties, and its defense requires constant vigilance, Dunn said. In Phillips 45, Madison wrote that the federal government powers are few and defined, but the states are numerous and indefinite. That principle was enshrined in the 10th Amendment, yet over generations, Congresses and the administration have crossed that line so often it almost has almost worn away. So it's the same thing, same stuff he talked about on the other letter. So that's good. It's a good thing, and that's why you have to always see things in the bigger picture. And I have talked about the 10th Amendment in general in my past episodes as well, plus information from the 10th Amendment Center. Now, what I'm going to be doing too is leave a rough draft of the 10th Amendment resolution. Okay, folks can look that up yourselves. It's by the 10th Amendment Center, and of course, Bill of Rights Institute. There's a couple copies of the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, and it's pretty cool. Like it says here, like I'll just do the top. I'm not going to read this in its entirety, and it says here. These resolutions were passed by the legislatures of Kentucky and Virginia in response to the Alien Sedition Acts of 1798, and were authored by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, respectively. The resolutions argue that the federal government had no authority to exercise power not specifically delegated to it in the Constitution. The Virginia resolution, authored by Madison, said that by enacting the Alien Sedition Act, Congress was exercising a power not delegated by the Constitution, but on the contrary, expressively and positively forbidden by one of the amendments thereto, a power which more than any other ought to produce universal alarm, because it is leveled against that right of freely examining public characters and measures, and of the free communication among the people thereon, which has ever been justly deemed the only effectual guardian of our every other right. Madison hoped that other states that would register their opposition to the Alien Sedition Act as a beyond the power given to Congress. And a Kentucky resolution, authored by Jefferson, went further than Madison's Virginia resolution and asserted that states had the power to nullify unconstitutional federal laws. The Kentucky resolution declared, in part, the several states who form that instrument, the Constitution being sovereign and independent, have the unquestionable right to judge of its infraction, and that a nullification by those states of all unauthorized acts is a rightful remedy. The ideas in the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions became a precursor to John C. Calhoun's argument about the powers of states to nullify federal laws. However, during the nullification controversy of the 1830s, Madison rejected the legitimacy of nullification and argued that it was not part of the Virginia position in 1798. But you can read this yourselves and make your own judgment. So, is, like I said, my friends, the past is today's greatest teacher. So I'm gonna leave that there. And of course, the milestone case was by Mercer Education on a review of Prince versus the United States, because this is one incredible document that challenged the Brady Law, and like I said before, when Donald Trump used the executive order, I did it on my past shows, an executive order on sanctuary cities. The city of San Francisco, I believe Seattle, I could be mistaken, did use this case against it, so it has a lot of merit. And like I said before, it'll be if you want to prohibit sanctuary cities in your state, you got to create a state referendum, which Texas is doing. So, and that is legit, just to let you folks know. So I'm going to add this to the memo as well. All right. So stuff it's stuff we can really learn about the 10th Amendment, and this is why I'm boldly supportive of the 10th Amendment Restoration Act done by Dr. Dunn. And people in the state of Florida need to take the initiative on making this happen. Push it, let your servants know that you are pro 10th Amendment and is not being anti-American. Okay, they want to throw some garbage at you, which is null and void. I'll just wipe those form of rhetoric, including the Restoration Act of 1870. I would wipe my butt on it as toilet paper and flush it down the toilet. So that's really enough said on this referendum. But I say this, thumbs up, and I digress. All right. This one here I got from Gunners of America. Like I say, a lot of people don't like Twitter. I do. I like cool things. It depends how you have to utilize it wisely. And I get some good information. People I follow, and vice versa. They follow me. And this one here came out the second, a couple of days ago, and it's by guns.com. And of course, Gunners of America picked it up. And it says here, bill would allow family members to strip Oregon's gun rights via court petition. Pretty sneaky. It is by Brian C.A. It says here, the Oregon State Senate approved a bill Monday that will allow people to ask court to revoke gun rights for families and household members. Senate Bill 719A creates a process for obtaining a so-called extreme risk protection order that will prohibit someone from possessing a deadly weapon when a court determines the person could present imminent risk to themselves or others. The bill defines a deadly weapon as any instrument, article, or substance specifically designed for and presently capable of causing death or physical injury, or firearm, whether loaded or unloaded. Under the proposal, a law enforcement officer or family or household member can initiate the protection order process. The person would have to surrender their weapons and concealed handgun license within 24 hours of being served with the protection order. When an officer serves the order, he or she can request immediate surrender of the weapons, but the person can also surrender to a gun dealer or a third party. Spouses, intimate partners, parents, children, siblings, or any living person living within the same household are eligible to initiate the process according to the bill. When a family members or law enforcement officers go before the court, the burden of proof lies with them. Before signing off on an order, a judge will consider the person's history of suicide threats and attempted threatened or actual use of force against others. They also look at any convictions for violence, stalking, cruelty to animals, weapons charges, or illegal substance use, among other things. The person ordered to surrender their deadly weapons has 30 days to contest the protection order. They'll be granted a hearing within 21 days of that request. So it's like a fast track. What I'm getting at. The measure passed the Senate 17-11. The only Republican to vote for the measure was Senator Brian Boquist, who sponsored the bill. We're only trying to target those individuals who are unfortunately want to commit suicide and unfortunately may murder their spouse that's in the house, their children and that's in the house, or their roommate, of course said, according to the Oregon Public Broadcasting. The Oregon Federation called the bill one of the most dangerous pieces of legislation that any gunners have ever dreamed up. It also allows a family member to have a person's property and rights taken by force by the police and then assumes that even though that person is very dangerous, the people who made these accusations can live safely with the person who has his right taken, said a post on the off website. It's complete madness. So you could assume, kind of, sort of. Still, Boquist, who serves as a Special Forces officer in the U.S. Army, pointed to the lives of veterans as a motive for the legislation. I don't care about veterans blowing their brains out, even if off and the NRA does not, he said. His co-sponsor, Senator Ginny Burdick, a Democrat, echoed that sentiment. Suicide rate among veterans is alarming, with an average of 20 veterans each day dying from suicide, often by gunshot, Burdick said. By identifying signs that a person may be suffering trauma and temporarily separating them from these firearms, we can effectively protect veterans and others in crisis that they can get help they need, the help they need. This bill, similar to a ballot measure that passed in Washington State last year. SBA now heads to the Oregon House of Representatives. How come they're not going after the facilities that have these veterans shoot these effing drugs in their bodies, where people are suffering from cancer and other distorted areas? How come they're throwing them into the line of fire 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in the name of imperialism? So if you have a roommate that want to stab you in the back, that's not your friend, that's your enemy. It's not trying to be a gun or anything like that. I'm pro self-defense. You think, and you believe it's going to really help the community? I don't think so. It's not going to help other people in Oregon. That's a wet dream. People with that mindset will figure out how to murder somebody or hurt someone. You don't need a firearm for that. And I'm not speaking NRA or off either. Let's get that straight. And it was interesting because I was looking at this bill, and it's 13 pages long, and it's a petitioner thing. So there's a fast track and all that good stuff. And let's read the summary of this. And it's a Senate Bill 719. Senate Bill, it's dated April 26. Wow, that was pretty quick. And I like what it says here. Creates process for retaining extreme risk protection, ordering, prohibiting person from the proceeding, possessing deadly weapon when court finds that person presents a risk in the near future, including imminent risk of suicide or causing injury to another person. Establishes procedure for law enforcement officer or family or household member of person to apply for order. Establishes procedures for respondent to request hearing and for continuance of order after hearing or if hearing is not requested. Establishes procedures for termination and renewal of order. Requires court-ordered respondent to surrender deadly weapons and concealed handgun license within 24 hours of service of initial order, and immediately upon service of continued or renewed order. So you folks getting this? Provides for a law enforcement officer serving order to request immediate surrender of deadly weapons and concealed handgun license, and authorized law enforcement officer to take possession of surrendered items. Allows respondent to surrender deadly weapons to a gun dealer or third party in lieu of law enforcement officer. Punishes violation of order of a false application for order by maximum of 1 year imprisonment, $6,250 fine, or both. Well, that's one good thing about it if you screw around. Permit service upon attorney or party in juvenile dependency proceeding by electronic mail or electronic service through court's electronic filing system. Describes how proof of service to be made where service by FastMile, which is fax communication, device, electronic mail, or electronic service. So, according to this, you might have to have those little proofs and all that. This really a bit cockeyed. And they give the whole rundown, the history of threatening and all that, on the influence of toxins, evidence of recent unlawful stuff. So they try to get you on credibility issues. And we can, yeah, it's really, like I said, really, I'm not too impressed with this. I can just read it right from here. Not too fond of it by any means. That's the question. How come they're not going after Big Pharma on this too? Bunch of let's do things the lazy ass way. So I boldly oppose this. Okay, I really do. So you guys can read it and make your own judgment. And it's interesting because it violates Article 1 of their state constitution. Multiple articles here. We'll start from here. Article 1, Section 1. We declare that all men, when they form a social compact, are equal in right, that all power is inherited in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And they have at all times a right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manners as they might think proper. Okay? And we can hit Section 9 of this, unreasonable search and seizures. So, no law shall violate the right of people to be secure in their persons, house, papers, effects, and unreasonable search or seizure, and no warrant shall issue upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or thing to be seized. So they're going to use it. They're manipulating that, okay, in that bill. And of course, they have 11 here. No, not 11. And of course, no. I'll hit 18. Private property shall not be taken for public use or particular services of any man be demanded without just compensation, nor except in the case of the state, without such compensation, first assessed and tendered, provided that all used for roads, ways, waterways necessary to promote the transportation of raw products of the mine or farm. Yeah, okay, I'm ranting here. So that's considered public use. That's considered private property. And this could be considered a 20. No law shall be passed granted to any citizen or class, citizens' privileges or immunities, which upon the same terms shall not equally belong to all citizens. And it's considered ex post facto law, impairing contracts, law depending on authorization in order to take effect, which is Section 21 of the same article. No ex post facto law or law impairing of the obligation of contract shall ever be passed, nor shall any law be passed the taking effect of which shall be made to depend upon any authority except as provided in this Constitution, provided that laws locating the capital of the state, locating county seats, and submitting town and corporate acts and other local and special laws may be taken effect or not upon a vote of the elector's interest. So you can see that as well. And I could use treason here if I want. That's like, I can, but, I find that's pretty irrelevant, respectfully. Because the way they manipulate this bill, I can't really say it's treasonous, So I am in the legitimate, under legality. If I could be, if I could be mistaken. And it says clear corruption of blood or forfeiture of estate. No conviction shall work corrupt the blood or forfeiture of estate. That's property. All right, and assets. 27. The person shall have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and of the state, but the military shall be kept in strict subordination to the civil power. All right, so And 33, enumeration of rights not exclusive. Enumeration of rights and privileges should not be construed to impair or deny others retained by the people. And of course here, there shall, is 34, slavery or involuntary servitude. There shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the state, otherwise than as a punishment for crime. Wherefore the party shall have been duly convicted. So right there, they're trying to force you in this order, even with this pathetic, stupid, fast-track hearing, without giving an actual fair trial and all that. That's the question everyone has to look at. And, of course, that's been repealed. Okay. So that's how I look at it. This bill, 719A, might sound good, but the fine print is treacherous. The people in Oregon, you know what to do. Don't let these nannies tread on you by any means. Yeah, a lot of vultures out there want to take this for granted. So, always pay attention, my friends. All right? Okay, so I'll be right back. Cool, so I'm back, yeah. So, and, gotta get my mic down here. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, cool, man. So I'm gonna be next one here. Came out yesterday. Activist post. And it says here, armed agents raid park, destroy food, seize food carts over improper permitting. Oh my goodness. Government agents have again, it's by Claire Burnish, by the way. Government agents have again let their true colors shine in the latest attempt to fight one of the most pernicious and brutal crimes embedding far too many communities across the nation. Lack of permit. Government, can I make love to my wife at this certain time? I love speed doing that. Never fear. Code enforcers raid street food vendors outside Sacramento Southside Park, where they have been long made beverage and food available to the public and attendees of Our Lady of Guadalupe Church each Sunday. These fearless agents of the state, peace officers, not only seize the food supposedly sold in need of the permit, they dump punch into the storm drains and confiscate coolers, tables, chairs, canned soda, and literally everything in the vendor's possession. The entire raid captured on Facebook Live video. In video footage, our peace officer says, I personally talked to each of them a month ago, and then I told them, if you don't comply, if you don't get a permit, you're going to be in violation. They're going to confiscate your product. Yes, I would. So do you have a Maltese sex doll, inflatable sex doll in your closet? What agents failed to make clear on tape is that most of the vendors present had indeed applied for permits prior to this raid, but the permits had yet to be approved. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. You know how that goes. Government, they love to drag their feet. They love to linger because they believe they are smarter than you. In short, the officers previously warned permits would be necessary, but they did not allow sufficient time for governmental permission slips to be granted before carrying through on threats to shut them down. One woman pleaded with these officers of the peace not to take under her cooler filled with water and cans of pop. She explained her family so desperately needed. But a female cop will not listen to reason. Eventually, forlorn woman had no choice but to relent and allow the beverages cooler to be seized. You see that so-called peace officer? She's like one big slob that probably just sits there, eat her bonbons, and watch Oprah Winfrey, okay? Look what they're doing. Desiree Rojas, the Labor Council of the Latin American Advancement, can be heard narrating the footage on the raid. Rojas believed the Ostraspers raid might have more to the vendors' nationalities. Most speak Spanish and are Mexican than with the lack of permits. It was embarrassing and humiliating, she told local Fox 40. And I don't think that the Mexican community deserves to be treated that way. Well, I'll be honest, honey, just to let you know, they're trying to never try to use the ethnic thing to an extent because they harassed Arnold Abbott and he was of white European descent. I will continue on here. But what Rojas added next to speak to the oppressive national political climate and the fears so innately present in the minds of those food vendors that their clientele as to be extricable from their utterly victimless crimes. See, then that's that's a key point. We thought it was ICE. These otherwise laws-abiding street vendors, most waiting for the appropriate pieces of paper for which they apply, but now must scramble to supplant the income that will be lost without equipment necessary to run their businesses. Without the coolers to keep beverages appropriately chilled or warm on or the table and chairs they provide the churchgoers who congregate over a meal, the vendors fear for their welfare and that they might have attracted the attention of immigrant officials if unnecessarily so. Rojas emphasized most of these Sunday morning vendors would very much like to work within confines of the law, whether it will be though permitting or any other restrictions the state would impose, but had not been given sufficient time but since being threatened with shutdown for permit applications to be granted. Ironically, monikered peace officers claim without elaborating or providing specific details on the video they received complaints. Yeah? How come you don't talk to them in the first place? You got to be called underdog, right? But the outpouring of support from the public and church communities, as well as an outrage over the raid, did not evince any complainants relieved to see the panicking quashed. Rojas members and the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement will discuss the raid, its repercussions, and their concerns for the community stemming from the actions taken by police on Sunday. They literally instilled fear, Rojas opened. Right now, we're conducting with our own investigation. Obtaining a permit, which for all intents and purposes amounts to a permission slip from the state, can be fraught and unnecessarily arduous procedure depending on one's location in the U.S. and the subject matter in question. Frequently, the state officers no leniency in the matter, making the process of getting a permit a patience testing exercise at best. At extenuating circumstances, obtaining a permit becomes a Herculean task. For instance, last August, Louisiana experienced torrential downpours and widespread flooding so damaging scores of homes, and businesses had no choice but to rebuild it from scratch. That seemingly simple solution, starting over, so turned the laborious hoop jumping in order satisfying permitting requirements in the state had previously imposed. No latitude was ordered flood victims when it came for construction to begin. Permits as a state essential demanding are permits. Even high water left victims without shelters, as Baton Rouge building official Justin Dupuy noted at that time. We haven't suspended of any requirement for permitting. Then in September, another prime example of the absurd intersection between logic and overcriminalization of daily life reared its head when a little girl, and what little girls have done throughout time immemorial, she set up a lemonade stand. Not so fast, the state says. You need a permit, which would have cost her $200, and your stand must be up to code, which would have been entailed $3,500 to bring this neighborhood refreshment station into compliance. At the height of the Pokemon Go hysteria, several local governments even sought to force permitting restrictions on players, from diligent street vendors offering tasty bites to kids, offering family recipe lemonade, parched to passerby. One thing has been made abundantly clear: permitting is out of control. Permits are the government's way of bilking people of money under the petulant guise of public safety. But the truth about permitting is much simpler and infinitely as banging. You aren't allowed to profit unless I get my cut, is what the state really says when Mexican food vendors, flood victims, little girls, and countless others receive fines and tickets or have their possessions confiscated due to only to lack of permit. That the Sacramento food vendors didn't shrink legal responsibilities and had to apply for the necessary permits when cops seized their wares again prove the issue has a little to do with permit itself and everything to do with unreasonable government running roughshod on all of us. If you still aren't convinced, just ask the guy who volunteered free hugs to subway riders in November, for which the state slapped him a $101 ticket. There's a link for that too. That's on the Free Thought Project. Came out on the 29th. So the whole thing is half-assed. It's at Montreal. Yeah, Montreal, Canada, right? Yeah, Montreal, Canada. Yeah, so totally ridiculous. You know how that goes, my friend. It's government. They think they know best. You know what? That's why I laugh at them. They're pathetic, many of them. And they think they're smarter than you. Hey, yesterday I seen the mayor walking by. He had like a couple, Monday, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, he was walking by. And he was doing this little free speech thing on the Fleet Week, Military Fleet Week, with the Navy and the Marines. There's going to be some air sea show coming up this weekend in Fort Lauderdale. He was out there pouncing around. He was in single file. He walked right by. I was inside a rush. I just bust out laughing. Talking to someone, saw him, just laughed my ass off. That's how I feel about some of these politicians. They all believe they're smarter than you guys. There's a bunch of not all, but a lot of them think they're a bunch of spoiled little brats that think the world should revolve around them. And another thing, too, people need to start talking to them like they are. Put them in their place. Talk to them as servants, not masters. Can't even masturbate on their own free will, okay? Just say figure of speech. What happened in Sacramento is just another example of nannies. Police know best. Government knows best. And they can't even take care of themselves. Little bit now and then is good. No victim, no crime. If you're like, guess what, jury duty, when you go to jury duty, jury nullification, everyone has a right to know about this. That's one way you can stop them. And I'm going to continue on here. And this is by TechDirt.com. Came out a couple of days ago. Got this from NewsBuzz. Good site, newsbuzz.com. And it says here, new tools allow voice patterns to be cloned to produce realistic but fake sounds of anyone saying anything. From the shopped images are so yesterday dead. Fake images often produced using sophisticated software like Photoshop or the GIMP were around long before so-called fake news become an issue. They are part and parcel of the internet's fast-moving creative culture and a trap for anyone that passes on shrinking images. Sorry about that here. Just open this up a little bit. Yeah, good, right there. Sorry about that. Just striking images without checking their provenance or plausibility. Until now, this kind of art manipulation has been limited to the visual sphere. But a new generation of tools will soon allow entire voice patterns to be cloned from relative small samples with increasing fidelity, such that it can be hard to spot they are fake. For example, November last year, The Verge wrote about Obdo's Project Voco. Recording voiceovers, dialogue, and narration, people would often like to change and insert a word or a few words due to either a mistake they made or simply because they would like to change part of the narrative. Reads an official Obdo statement. We have developed a technology called Project Voco, in which you can simply type in the word or words that you would like to change or insert to voiceover. The algorithm does the rest and makes it sound like the original speaker said those words. Since then, things have moved apace. Last week, The Economist wrote about the French company Candy Voice, utter 160 or so French or English phrases into a phone app developed by Candy Voice, a new Parisian company, and the app software will resemble tiny slices of those sound to insinuate in a plausible simulacrum of your own dulcet tones. Whatever types words is subsequently fed. In effect, the app has cloned your voice. The Montreal company Lyrebird has a page full of fascinating demos on its voice cloning technology, which requires even less in the way of samples. Lyrebird will offer an API to copy the voice of anyone. It will need as little as 1 minute of audio recording of a speaker to compute a unique key to find his or her voice. This key then will allow to generate anything from its corresponding voice. The API will be robust enough to learn from noisy recordings. The following sample illustrates this feature. The samples are not cherry-picked. Please note that those are artificial voices. They do not convey the opinions of Donald Trump or Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. As tech readers will have spotted, this technical development raises big ethical questions, articulated here by Lyrebird. Voice recordings are currently considered a strong piece of evidence in our societies and in particular in jurisdictions of many countries. Our technologies questions the validity of such evidence as it allows to easily manipulate audio recordings. This could potentially have dangerous consequences such as misleading diplomats, fraud, and more generally any other problem caused by stealing the identity of someone else. The Economist quantifies the problem according to its article. Voice biometric software is similar to the kind deployed by the banks to block unauthorized access to accounts was fooled 80% of the time in tests using the technology. Humans didn't do much better, only spotting that a voice had been cloned 50% of the time. And remember, these figures are for today's technologies as algorithms approve. And more laws kicks in. It is not unreasonable to think that it will become almost impossible to tell by ear whether the voice you hear is a real thing or a version generated by the using clone technology. Yes, it can be used in a dangerous way. So something to really look at. I remember the movie Tango Cash they did something like that. They cloned their voices. And they got served time in prison. But it was proven later on in the movie it was a false indictment. Just to give you guys an example. Always be careful what you wish for, my friends. You can use it for good things, but people can utilize it to take advantage of others. That's why you always got to keep your guard up. Listen. Pay attention. Observe. Don't get caught and taking all this for granted, okay? And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you send something that's interesting and may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, Minds.com, and I do donations. You can send your comments there as well at patreon.com/LokiLuck3. 3 eyes altogether. That's 3 eyes altogether. Furthermore, you can email me at LokiLuck3, number 3, altogether at gmail.com, or your encrypted types, LokiLuck03 at protonmail.com. All right, folks, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.